All right, today we're going to get straight into it. We're going to be doing some basic chord structuring today, chord progressions. We're going to start off in C major, and we're just going to learn the basics, and then we're going to go into some alternative chord progressions. So we obviously have our 1, 4, 5, 1 progression, which is going to be 1, the root note, 4, the subdominant, and then the 5, the dominant. So if you just count up the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're only using the white notes, makes it very easy to understand this. You just build up off of every other note on the white notes, and you get your C major chord if you're starting on C. And then you can move up to the 5th, which is the last note that you used in that chord if you want. And then you can come down 1 note to the 4th using the same structure. So you have your 1, 4, 5 and your 1, 5, 4. Now, I find the 1, 4, 5 to be a little more cliche. That 5 to that 1 sounds a little old, a little stale. I do prefer the 5, 4. I just like the 4 chord much better usually to the 1. It sounds much less cliche. Now, again, we're going to stay in C major. We're going to be on C. And then I'm going to go to E. I'm just going to add a bit of a dark tone to it. That's the 3rd, the minor 3rd. Down to the minor 2nd, which is D minor. And then we're going to go up to the 5th. And then to the 1. Now, that is a clear 2, 5, 1 progression. We added a little extra in the beginning to get there. So I wanted to go from 1 to 3, just to add a little extra tension in the progression, rather than getting, right to it, which is the 2, 5, 1. If you want tension in your song, literally just take longer to get where you need to be. Stay on a note that isn't the subdominant or the dominant chords. And it's going to help a lot with adding tension to the song. Usually it's the minor chords in the song. We have D minor, E minor, and we have A minor. Now we also have B diminished, which, if you look up here, that's what a B diminished looks like. If you just take the root note and bring it down a half step, you have B flat major, which is from C minor. It's going to be the relative minor, or the parallel minor, actually, sorry. And you can use that in progressions too. So right here, you'll see the stepwide motion right here. I can go. So we're going to go F major, which is going to be the 4 to the flat 7, right? 4 to the flat 7 to the 5. And that has a very, again, kind of a classical vibe to it. Not as cliche, though, as, a standard 1, 4, 5. You can recognize it, though. It has more of a classical vibe using the borrowed chord from the minor scale. It's that, it's really the voice leading that does it. It's because it's got that sort of half step leading tone. This is the leading tone in this. So it goes ya da da. And then we go. Again, very easy. You could always resolve the 5th or the 4th to the 3. Now we're going to get into another borrowed chord that is one of my favorites. If you want, you can go C major, and then instead of E minor, we're going to do E major. So just take your E minor chord, and we're going to throw whatever finger you're using to do the minor 3rd. We're going to bring it up here, we got the major third now, which is, for lack of a better word, a very, spicy chord. It's used in indie rock a lot and a lot of love songs and ballads too. Very angsty stuff. It's also used in, well, not necessarily this, but if you go like this E major to this F major, that's a very, like cliche sort of like flamenco, I believe. Or, you just like, if you're going for like a Spaniard sort of vibe, you can absolutely do a half step difference between two chords and make them both major. So you just, that's just a standard way to get something. It has a lot of tension because there's just the half step in between them. It's very exciting. You can throw that in your song. And I'll show you a way to do that later, just to show you a more fluid way of using more than just those chords. But my favorite chord progression to use with the major third is going to be like this. You have your major 1, C major, then you have your E major. And then, again, stepwise motion. We have our A minor, which is going to be our minor 6. And then we're going to move, again, stepwise motion to our major 4. And to add one more borrowed chord, we're going to actually take this from the parallel minor again. And we're going to get the minor 4. So it would sound like this. Dun, dun. Which, again, that minor 4 especially adds a really sad, melancholic feel to it. And when paired with that a major third chord, it adds a lot of excitement to it. There's, I think it's really used in a sort of resentful feel. I think it's used in the song Guppy by Titanic Sinclair. I do not advocate for him as a person. He has had a lot of problems. He's a very problematic person in general, from what I can understand. But when I had first heard that song, I thought the chord progression was great. I've used it in many songs since then. It's really great for the tension it provides. Let's see. Now, another favorite of mine is, we're going to start on the major 4, and we're going to go down to the minor 2nd. So we're going F major to D minor to E minor to C major. So you could go from that E minor to that C major, but it would feel a little weak. Now, you're adding a lot of tension from starting on the 4th, right? Because you could automatically go down to the 1 if you wanted to, but I'm going to the 2nd, and again, not going up to the 5th, because that's expected from the 2-5-1. We're adding a lot of tension by doing this. So I'm going to the 2 minor, 3 minor, and then we're going to go to the 6 minor, and then so that's a much longer chord progression, but it's literally just F major, D minor, E minor, A minor, and then we're going to go 4, 5, 4, 1. So that's really kind of like leaving you wondering where it's going to go, just because it has that back and forth motion. And we can get into some sort of songwriting tips in a second with this. Now, let's head back to the 1-4-5 real quick and just kind of look at that. So you can go from the 1, 4, 5, right? Very simple. Now, what I like to do is do an 8th note for 2 bars, actually, which I'm going to write this in and just show you guys what that looks like. Now they have an 8th note length spread out into quarter notes. So we're going like that, and then I'm going to actually go like this instead of moving the chord entirely. Because again, voice leading is very important. Keeping chords close usually sounds better. If you want to go with the block chords, which, if you don't know what a block chord is, you know, your standard root position, no inversions. So that's what that would be. So there's 2 ways you can do this. The first is going to be less tense, but it's going to bring more energy to that, and that's staying on the C major or the root chord for 2 bars, right? And now the other one is actually going to be the opposite. We're going to stay on the 5 for 2 bars, and it's going to want to resolve down to that C major longer. So now, this would be much better used in an intro when you want to build the energy into it. Now, if you want to have a tense energy, this is really good for a bridge or a pre-chorus right here, where you're using those tense notes that stay. Like, this is where, sort of right here, where you're building up that tension, where you could really let a lot of emotion out. You can say a lot of things that you want to say, or you could build up to what you want to say when you're launching into your chorus, or into your hook, whatever you want to call it. It's really how much time you spend in certain spots. You could also, again, do the same thing right here with the 4 chord, but I just don't think that you get, even though I find the 1-4-5 chord progression to be more cliche, I feel like the tension you get from that 5 chord, it being the dominant, you don't quite get when you linger on the 4 chord. My favorite thing to do with the 4 chord 4 tension, which I've shown you previously, is to actually, and we'll do the chord progression I was showing you earlier, is to make that quick change into the minor for maybe half of a bar, just half of the length, however you want the F to be on there. So if you really want to, you could even have it be just one really quick. But me, I typically linger on it for 2 of the measures. Just because you have that even balance between, you know, wanting to return there and then getting lost for a second, but it also brings it closer to the G when you do that. So the leading has a few different ways to bring it back home. All right, next I can show you on screen the 4, 2, 3 that I was showing you guys earlier. Now, we can actually, now that you've been introduced to the 3 major, I can show you what that would sound like if you chose to transition between the 3 minor and the 3 major to add even more tension. We're going to bring this down an octave just to show you what the crunch of it sounds like. Now this is fine and well, but if you want to add even more motion, again, you can bring this up, maybe even go like this. So that would be from the E major to the E sus4, you know, suspended 4, so you're bringing it up from the major third to the 4th, and then we're going from that to a very well voice-led A minor. But I think it would actually be better to either stay on the suspended, like that, or stay on the A minor. So those are the basic chord progressions. Now, I just need a moment to think what I want to show you guys next. So I have been making a point of showing you guys the voice leading and the reasons why a lot. So you can see if you move the top 2 notes up from C, you get your F major. Now if you move up the bottom note, you get your D minor. Again with the 2 notes up, and now you have your G major. Move that up and you have your E minor. And these are very important to know, because when you know that G major is 1 note away from E minor, you know that having those 2 shared notes, they have a strong bond between them. Now, transferring between a chord that has no shared notes is going to be a lot harder, like, you know, C to D. Now, that has its own reasoning behind it. You could, you know, go, like one of my favorite notes or chord progressions is actually F major to G major to A minor. Da 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 da. And that sort of has this like energy that I really like to do on pre-choruses. It brings it up. And that's just with stepwise motion. But usually you want your chords and your chord progressions to share notes, because it just is so much stronger when you transfer between them. Because there can obviously still be tension, like G major and E minor have shared notes. But they still bring a lot of tension between them. So it's like really thinking about it like another way. Like, think about how that G major 6 sounds. There's already a lot of tension in adding that 6th there. So if you just remove your 5th, of course there's going to be tension between the chord change. So that's another way to look at it. You can look at it as additional voices on top of the chord. But this is also why things like suspended chords, where I'm only moving up 1 note instead of 2 notes, make for such a good transition. So I can actually da 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 da. You can see, like, just by the voice and the chord progression itself, that suspended really does a lot of work in gluing the sound together. That's why a lot of church music uses suspended chords. It keeps things together very fluidly. You're going to want to learn to use your inverted chords as well. So simply put, I'm going to go E, G, C instead of C, E, G, right? Because now it's sort of from, and the way I think of it is that it's an F major that we're bringing down the 2 bottom notes. And when you get good at learning the relationships between these chords, you're going to be able to make chord progressions on the spot a lot quicker. You're going to be able to, go between. Now we're going to leave C major now. This is going to be C sharp major, I believe. Yeah, that would be C sharp minor. So this is C sharp major. So I'm literally just going to go. So, you can study the relationship between those chords very easily, but it's all about stepwise motion and about, either you're using half steps or whole steps to move these notes up, but you're keeping at least one shared note. And I think that's the most important thing to know about when creating chord progressions is the relationship between them and focusing on that voice leading. All right. I think in the future we're gonna focus on more genre music for sure. Like we're gonna get into indie rock, we're gonna get into R&B, and we're gonna focus on like major 7s, minor 7s, what use those have. We're gonna get into some blues. We're gonna get into classic rock sort of progressions, very standard stuff. We're gonna get into a little bit of jazz when we're going with the R&B and all that, and we're gonna get into a lot of indie rock for sure, because that is my main focus with chord progressions. That's how I view things a lot. We're gonna get into the way to arpeggiate chords and use melody in the progression to voice lead in a different way. You guys leave comments down below and tell me what you guys specifically want to see next, and I'll try and work on that first ahead of everything else. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the video.